Hello, I'm Black Bright News, and today's quite a serious topic because it's about the Telegraph headlines that Britain is one escalation away from war. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about that so that we don't panic and, just to give it some perspective. So, welcome to Black Bright News. Today I want to talk about the headline that caught my attention in the Telegraph: Britain is one escalation away from war. When you see words like that, it's very easy to feel alarmed, especially after years of hearing about Ukraine, Russia, the Middle East, cyber attacks, terrorism, and growing military tensions around the world. The question is not whether war exists somewhere in the world. Sadly, it always does. The question is whether Britain is genuinely one step away from being drawn into a major conflict. My honest view is that the headlines are designed to grab attention, but it is not completely without substance. Britain is certainly living in a period of heightened international tension. We are supporting Ukraine militarily and financially. We are a part of NATO. We have obligations to our allies, and we are increasingly involved in intelligence, cybersecurity, and strategic operations that most ordinary people never hear much about. A serious escalation involving Russia and NATO could affect Britain very quickly, even if no British city were attacked directly at the beginning. What concerns me is that many people hear the word war and immediately think of the Second World War, bombs falling on London, evacuation, ration books, and millions of troops on the move. Modern conflict may not begin that way. It could start with a cyber attack that disrupts power grids, communications, banking systems, transport networks, or military infrastructure. It could also involve attacks on undersea cables, satellites, or critical energy supplies. In that sense, the distance between peace and conflict is probably shorter than it used to be. At the same time, I think we have to be careful not to allow dramatic headlines to create a sense of constant fear. Governments, military analysts, and newspapers often discuss worst case scenarios because that is a part of their job. Preparing for possible escalation is not the same thing as saying escalation is inevitable. Britain has been described as being on the brink of war at various points during the Cold War, during the Cuban Missile Crisis, after terrorist attacks, and during other international crises. The fact that leaders talk about risks does not automatically mean that tanks are about to roll through Europe tomorrow. What I find interesting is how these stories affect ordinary people who are already carrying heavy burdens. Many listeners are worried about paying their bills, keeping a roof over their heads, supporting elderly relatives, helping their children, or managing their own health. When they hear that Britain may be one escalation away from war, it can feel as though the world is becoming increasingly unstable and unpredictable. And there might be some truth to that. I think responsible journalism should inform people without leaving them feeling helpless. There is another angle that deserves attention. Britain's armed forces have been under pressure for years. Questions have been raised about troop numbers, equipment, recruitment, and defence spending. Some commentators argue that we are less prepared for a major conflict than we were in previous generations. So when analysts warn about escalation, part of what they may be saying is that Britain needs to take defence and resilience more seriously. That is a different message from saying war is about to happen next week. Personally, I think the most realistic assessment is this: Britain is not one accidental headline away from immediate war, but we are living in a world where international crises can escalate faster than many people realise. The combination of military alliances, advanced technology, cyber warfare, misinformation, And global interconnectedness means that events in Eastern Europe, the Middle East, or the Indo-Pacific can have direct consequences for people sitting in their homes in Bedfordshire, Birmingham, Glasgow, or Cardiff. I would also like to encourage people to pay attention to what politicians actually do, not just to the most dramatic newspaper wording. Are emergency powers being introduced? Is there large-scale military mobilisation? Are reservists being called up in significant numbers? Are embassies issuing major evacuation warnings? Those are the kind of developments that tell us more about real level of danger than a single striking headline. One thing I do think Britain should focus on is national resilience. The pandemic taught us that societies can be disrupted in ways that few people expect. Whether the threat is war, cyber attack, energy disruption, or another global emergency, communities that are informed, connected, and practically prepared cope far better than communities driven by panic. Knowing your neighbours, having some emergency supplies, keeping important documents accessible, and staying informed from reliable sources are sensible precautions for any uncertain future, not signs of paranoia. So my perspective is balanced rather than sensational. The headline contains a warning about genuine geopolitical tensions, but it should not be interpreted as a prediction that Britain is about to enter a major war tomorrow. We should take international security seriously, expect governments to plan for the worst case scenarios, and remain alert to developments involving NATO and Russia and other global flashpoints. But we should also resist the temptation to live in a state of permanent anxiety every time a newspaper uses dramatic language. This has been Black Bright News, sharing a calm and practical perspective on the stories that make people stop and think. Stay informed, stay grounded, and remember that understanding the news is always more useful than being frightened by the headline alone. And that's all I've really got to say for now. Happy for your comments. And I'll speak to you again soon. Bye-bye.